On a busy city street, the scorching summer sun reflected off the car windows as they moved in line. The noise of the traffic blended with the sound of hurried voices as people rushed back and forth. Amid this chaos, a small guinea pig named Nibbles was all alone, trembling with fear. He had been abandoned, left behind by someone who didn't understand the value of his life. When a kind passerby noticed him, Nibbles was huddled in a corner, trying to shield himself from all the commotion. "Look what we have here," the man said, crouching down to pick up the guinea pig. "You shouldn't be here, little friend." Gently, he scooped Nibbles into his hands and took him to an animal shelter where the little one felt insecure. But at the same time, a spark of hope began to light up in his heart. At the shelter, Nibbles was placed in a temporary cage, surrounded by other animals that seemed more lively and social. He watched everything with curious eyes, but his shyness kept him from getting closer. As time passed, he noticed a dark corner at the back of the room, where a big bear named Brutus kept to himself. The bear seemed lost in his own thoughts, with a grumpy and sad expression on his face. "Why is he so sad?" Nibbles murmured to himself as his eyes fixed on Brutus. "I think he needs a friend." The guinea pig watched while the other animals played, sharing stories and laughter. But Brutus remained there, still and distant. If I can make him smile, maybe things will change," Nibbles thought, deciding he had to do something about it. With his heart racing, Nibbles came up with a plan in his mind. "I need a way to win him over. Maybe a gift. That always works." He looked around the cage, searching for something he could use as an offering. There wasn't much there, except for a piece of carrot left over from the previous meal. "That's it! I'll take the carrot to him." Determined, Nibbles grabbed the carrot and with a bit of hesitation began to approach the shadowy corner. "Hi, bear. I brought this for you," Nibbles said, holding out the carrot with his tiny front paws. Brutus looked at him with disdain, growling softly. "What do you want, guinea pig? I don't have time for games." The bear's response was like a bucket of cold water, but Nibbles wasn't willing to give up. The next day, Nibbles decided to try again. This time, he brought an apple, bigger and juicier. "Maybe this will change things," he thought hopefully. As he approached Brutus once more, the bear looked at the apple, his eyes showing curiosity, but there was still an invisible barrier keeping him closed off. "You don't have to be alone," Nibbles insisted, his voice sweet and encouraging. "I just want to be your friend." Brutus hesitated, but upon seeing the apple, he ended up accepting it. "All right, guinea pig, I'll take the apple, but don't expect much from me," he murmured as he took the fruit with one paw. Nibbles felt it was a small step forward, and that motivated him to keep reaching out to the bear. In the days that followed, Nibbles began sharing stories about his life before the shelter, funny tales and adventures he had experienced. "Once, I chased a shadow and ended up tangled in a plant," he said, making animated gestures. Brutus, although reluctant, started to listen, even if in silence. The guinea pig noticed that slowly, Brutus's expression was changing, although the bear still wouldn't fully open up. And so, with every attempt, Nibbles was determined to break through Brutus's shell of loneliness. He believed that with patience and love, he could show the bear that friendship was a light that could dispel even the darkest shadows. Nibbles approached Brutus with a piece of carrot in his hand, his little heart pounding with anticipation. He knew the bear was there, in his dark corner, surrounded by shadows that seemed to mirror his sadness. The shelter was filled with laughter and play, but Brutus remained isolated, like a rock in the middle of a river of joy. With a slight tremor in his paws, Nibbles stepped forward, the carrot swaying in his tiny grip. "Hey, Brutus, look what I brought for you," he exclaimed, trying to sound cheerful. But as he got closer, a deep and threatening growl echoed through the calm atmosphere of the shelter. Brutus looked at him with disdain, his gaze fixed and piercing, causing Nibbles to hesitate. "Go away, guinea pig," Brutus grumbled, his voice heavy with discontent. "I'm not interested in company." Nibbles, however, wasn't discouraged. He knew that Brutus's loneliness was just a facade, a protection against the pain the bear carried. With a deep sigh, he stepped back, but he made a silent promise to himself. He would come back the next day, not just with a snack, but with a plan. The next morning, Nibbles arrived at the shelter with a bright red apple, his face glowing with determination. He saw Brutus again leaning against the wall, and his heart warmed at the thought of the joy he could bring to the bear. "Hello, Brutus. I brought an apple for you," Nibbles called, holding the fruit carefully. Brutus didn't move at first. His eyes were fixed on the apple, but he hesitated, as if the idea of accepting something from someone was too heavy a burden. "What do you want, guinea pig?" he asked, his voice still full of hesitation. "I just want you to try it," Nibbles replied, trying to keep his voice light. "It's juicy and sweet. I promise you'll like it." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Brutus reached out and took the apple, looking suspiciously at Nibbles. "If I don't like it, will you feel guilty?" the bear asked, his expression skeptical. "No. If you don't like it, I promise I'll do a funny dance to cheer you up," Nibbles said, winking at the bear, trying to break the tension. Nibbles' effort made Brutus let out a faint grumble, but he took a bite of the apple, and the crunch echoed in the quiet of the shelter. As Brutus chewed, Nibbles began sharing funny stories about his adventures before coming to the shelter. "One time, I hid in a cardboard box, and my owner ended up taking me to the park without realizing it." Nibbles laughed at the memory. "People thought I was an escaped guinea pig." Brutus, surprised, stopped chewing. He looked at Nibbles with a curiosity he hadn't shown before. "Really? And what happened next?" he asked, his voice now a little softer. "Well, I got so excited that I jumped out of the box and almost fell into a lake," Nibbles continued, waving his paws as if he was recreating the scene. "Everyone started laughing, and I was so embarrassed, but it was so much fun." Brutus let out a small involuntary laugh, a sound that seemed almost unfamiliar to him, but it brought a lightness to the atmosphere. Nibbles realized he was making progress and decided not to stop. He kept telling stories, each one funnier than the last, while Brutus listened in silence, his expression starting to let go of the weight of sadness. It was then that Nibbles understood that, despite all the difficulties, there was a spark of curiosity and hope in Brutus. He was starting to open up, even if only subtly. And with that, Nibbles felt that his plan was working. Their friendship was still distant, but the first seed had been planted, and he was determined to nurture it. The sun filtered its golden rays through the tree branches, creating a pattern of light and shadow on the forest floor. Nibbles, with his soft and shiny fur, was determined to make Brutus laugh. He had noticed that despite the bear always being so closed off and isolated, there was a small glimmer of curiosity in his eyes every time Nibbles told stories. The guinea pig decided that this curiosity needed to be fed. One morning, Nibbles approached the dark corner where Brutus usually hid. He had an idea in mind. "Hey, Brutus," he called out with his cheerful voice. The bear, who was lying down with his head resting on his paws, just grumbled in response, but Nibbles didn't let that discourage him. "I have a new story to tell. It's about a mischievous cat that lives at the shelter. You're gonna love it." Brutus lifted his head, a bit curious, but still with a closed expression. Nibbles took this as a positive sign and started narrating. Once upon a time, there was a cat named Max. He loved to hide in high places, but he always ended up getting into trouble. One time, he decided to climb the food shelf, and guess what happened? Brutus, reluctant, looked at Nibbles but didn't say anything. The guinea pig continued excitedly. "He knocked over all the food cans. It was a real rain of pet food. All the animals ran to grab a can, and Max, well, he got stuck up there, meowing desperately." To Nibbles' surprise, a low laugh escaped Brutus's mouth. The sound was so rare that it made Nibbles' heart race with joy. "You really think that's funny?" he asked, a wide smile on his face. Brutus, still with a shy smile, nodded. "Yeah, it's funny." With each new attempt by Nibbles, Brutus seemed to open up a little more. He started joining Nibbles in some of his adventures around the shelter, even if hesitantly. On one of these occasions, Nibbles decided it was time to bring the bear out of his dark and gloomy corner. "Come on, Brutus. The other animals are playing ball. You'll have fun." I don't know if that's a good idea, Nibbles, Brutus replied, his gaze still fixed on the ground. I don't feel comfortable with them. But you're already part of our group. Look at how much fun they're having, Nibbles insisted, gently pulling Brutus's paw. They'd love to have you there, and I'd love to have you as my game partner. Brutus hesitated, but Nibbles's determination was contagious. Finally, he got up, shaking the dust off his fur. Okay, I'll give it a try, he said, almost in a whisper. The two walked together to the group, where the other animals were running and having fun. When Brutus entered the circle, there was a moment of silence. Everyone looked at him, surprised by his presence. "What are you waiting for? Come play!" Nibbles exclaimed, and soon the other animals started encouraging Brutus, welcoming him with warm smiles. Brutus hesitated, but then, seeing the joy on the others' faces, a small smile began to form on his lips. He joined the game, running after the ball, and for the first time felt the lightness of happiness. "I didn't know this could be so much fun," Brutus admitted, panting as he sat down next to Nibbles, who was beaming with joy. "See? It's not so bad, is it?" Nibbles replied, winking at the bear. "You're not alone anymore, you have friends now." And in that moment, Brutus realized that maybe loneliness wasn't his only option. The bond that was growing between him and Nibbles made him feel that at last he could find a place where he belonged. Nibbles and Brutus were finally becoming friends, and their connection grew stronger every day. One sunny morning, Nibbles suggested they explore the forest around the shelter. Brutus hesitated, but the idea of spending more time with the guinea pig appealed to him. He nodded slowly, and the two set off into the unknown. The forest was a magical place, filled with tall trees reaching up towards the sky, their green leaves dancing in the wind. The air was fresh, and the sound of birds singing created a natural symphony. Nibbles hopped around excitedly, while Brutus walked more cautiously, observing the new surroundings. "Look, Brutus!" Nibbles exclaimed, pointing to a sparkling stream that wound its way through the forest. "Let's go!" Brutus hesitated for a moment, but Nibbles' contagious joy was hard to resist. He followed the guinea pig to the edge of the stream, where colorful little fish darted about. "Look, they're so fast!" Nibbles laughed, trying to catch one of the fish with his paws. Brutus gave a slight smile, a sense of fun beginning to grow inside him. "You're pretty funny, Nibbles," Brutus commented, his voice still tinged with a hint of surprise. "I didn't know you had so much energy." "And you're more fun than I thought," Nibbles replied, winking. "Come on, let's play." After a few tries at catching the fish, Nibbles stepped away from the stream and led Brutus to a clearing lit by a soft glow. Fireflies were starting to appear, creating an enchanting scene. The two sat down on a small patch of soft grass, and Brutus looked around, admiring the beauty of the place. "It's beautiful here, isn't it?" Nibbles asked, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Yes, it is," Brutus replied, his gaze lost in the dance of the fireflies' lights. "I never used to notice these things before." Seeing that Brutus was more relaxed, Nibbles decided it was the right time for a deeper conversation. "Brutus, can you tell me what makes you sad?" he asked, looking into the bear's eyes. "You can trust me." Brutus hesitated, his expression changing to a shadow of pain. He took a deep breath before answering. I had a friend," Brutus began, his voice trembling. "He was with me during a fire. I tried to save him, but I couldn't. Since then I've felt guilty." Nibbles listened carefully, his heart tightening as he realized Brutus's inner struggle. "You shouldn't blame yourself, Brutus. Sometimes bad things happen, and we can't control them. What matters is that you tried," Nibbles said sincerely. "Life is full of ups and downs, and I want you to know that I'm here for you." "I know, but the pain is hard to carry," Brutus replied, the sadness evident in his voice. "I keep thinking that if I had been quicker, maybe he'd still be here." Nibbles moved closer, placing a comforting paw on Brutus's. "Your friend would want you to be happy, Brutus. He wouldn't want you to live with that guilt." Let's honor him by living our lives fully. Friendship is a way to celebrate those we love, Nibbles said, the determination in his words resonating. Brutus looked at Nibbles, and for the first time, a small spark of hope began to shine in his heart. He realized that even with the pain, there was room for new friendships and joys. Thank you, Nibbles. You really are a good friend, Brutus murmured, feeling the connection growing between them. The clearing, illuminated by the fireflies, seemed to reflect this new phase in their lives. As the two sat there, surrounded by the beauty of the forest, Brutus began to understand that friendship could be a path to healing his wounds and freeing himself from the weight of the past. The sun was beginning to set over the shelter, casting a golden glow through the trees. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation as all the animals prepared for the big friendship celebration. Nibbles, the guinea pig, was excited. He hopped around, helping the other animals set up the space where the event would take place. Brutus, the bear, watched from the back, nervous and apprehensive. Nibbles, I don't know if I can do this, Brutus murmured, his brown eyes fixed on the ground. He was restless, feeling the weight of the responsibility that came with the speech they had promised to give together. You'll do great, Brutus. Everyone is here to support you, and they want to hear what you have to say, Nibbles replied with his usual optimism. He approached the bear and gently patted his paw. Besides, you're not alone. We're in this together. Brutus sighed, trying to gather courage. But what if I stutter? What if no one cares about what I have to say? The insecurity was palpable in his voice, and Nibbles could sense the sadness still lingering over his friend. Let's practice. What do you want to say? What do you feel? Nibbles replied, his encouraging tone making Brutus look at him. The bear hesitated, but then he began to speak. I want to say that I'm grateful to have met you, Nibbles. Brutus's voice was low, but his words carried a weight that Nibbles could feel. You showed me that I don't have to stay isolated. You made me laugh, and that's something I hadn't done in a long time. That's beautiful, Brutus. You can talk about how important friendship is. People will connect with that, and above all, just be yourself. Nibbles insisted, encouraging his friend to open up even more. Right. Brutus took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. I want everyone to know that, even though life is hard, there's always room for friendship, that we can lean on each other. When the time for the celebration arrived, the shelter was filled with animals gathered in a clearing, illuminated by lanterns and bonfires. The air was filled with laughter and the delicious aromas of homemade treats. Nibbles and Brutus stood before everyone, the bear's heart pounding in his chest. Good evening, everyone, Nibbles began, his sweet voice echoing through the clearing. Today, we're here to celebrate friendship, and I want to introduce someone very special to me. He looked at Brutus, who stood beside him, visibly nervous. I'm Brutus, the bear began, his voice a bit shaky, but he tried to stay focused. And I want to share something. Before I met Nibbles, I was very lonely. I thought I'd never have friends again. The animals were silent, listening attentively. Nibbles smiled, encouraging Brutus to keep going. But Nibbles showed me that it's possible to open up and let others into our lives. He made me laugh when I thought I'd never smile again. Friendship is a light in dark times. Brutus's eyes glistened, and he looked at Nibbles, who gave him a reassuring nod. I want to thank all of you for accepting me, for giving me a second chance. We all face challenges, but together we can overcome them. Applause started to spread, and Brutus felt a warmth in his heart. He was feeling like a part of something bigger, and with each word he spoke, his confidence grew. So, let's celebrate friendship. Let's be the light for each other, just like Nibbles was for me. The crowd burst into applause and cheers. Nibbles was beaming, his heart filled with joy. He turned to Brutus and said, You were amazing. See, you did it. Everyone was cheering for you. Brutus smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. Thank you, Nibbles. I couldn't have done it without you by my side. And so, on that magical night, the animals celebrated not only the friendship between Nibbles and Brutus, but also the power of unity and acceptance. The clearing was filled with shared stories, laughter, and a new sense of community that touched the hearts of everyone present. Brutus was sitting in his usual spot at the shelter, the soft morning light barely able to penetrate the darkness he had built around himself. The bear, who had begun to open his heart to Nibbles and the other animals, felt a shadow of sadness forming in the back of his mind. He looked out the dirty window of the shelter's living room, watching the birds fly happily in the sky. The scene was beautiful, but his heart was heavy. That day, Nibbles approached, his little body bouncing with enthusiasm. "Hey, Brutus, how about a game of hide-and-seek with the other animals?" he suggested, his voice full of excitement. Brutus shook his head slowly, turning his gaze away. "Not today, Nibbles. I'm not feeling too good," he replied, his deep voice choked with emotion. Nibbles frowned, sensing that something wasn't right. "But you had so much fun last time. Everyone's waiting for you." "What happened?" he insisted, trying to break through the shell of sadness surrounding the bear. "It's not that, Nibbles. It's just, I don't want to." Brutus looked down, as if the answer was buried beneath his paws. It was easier to hide than to face the pain that consumed him. The memory of the fire, of his lost friend, came back to haunt him, and a lump formed in his throat. Disappointed, Nibbles hesitated. "Brutus, you know you can count on me, right?" he said with a firmness that even surprised himself. "If something is bothering you, I want to hear it. Friendship is about sharing, isn't it?" The bear glanced at the guinea pig, a look of concern on his face. "You wouldn't understand, Nibbles. I feel guilty. Guilty for not being able to save my friend," Brutus confessed, his voice filled with emotion. "I should have done more. If I'd arrived sooner, maybe he'd still be here." Nibbles felt his heart tighten at those words. He moved closer, sitting beside Brutus, trying to offer comfort. "Brutus, you can't carry that weight alone. No one can predict what will happen. You did the best you could," he said softly. But Brutus just shook his head, the sadness wrapping around him like a heavy cloak. "No, Nibbles. You don't know what it's like to look into the eyes of someone you love and not be able to save them. The pain is unbearable," he murmured, tears beginning to form in his eyes. Nibbles, realizing the gravity of the situation, decided he needed to be firm, even if it meant confronting Brutus's pain. "But you're not alone now. You have me and all the other animals at the shelter. We're here for you, Brutus. Please, don't push us away," he pleaded, his voice full of sincerity. The bear looked at Nibbles, the pain on his face mingling with a glimmer of hope. I don't want to push you away, Nibbles. I just don't know how to deal with it," Brutus replied, his voice trembling. "That's normal. We all face hard times. What matters is that you don't isolate yourself. You don't have to carry it all on your own," Nibbles insisted, feeling that the conversation was becoming a crucial turning point in their friendship. Brutus took a deep breath, trying to gather the courage to face his feelings. I just don't want you to see the worst of me," he confessed, looking down at the ground. "I've already seen the best of you, Brutus, and I'm here to see what comes next." "Let's face this together," Nibbles declared, determined not to let his friend sink back into the darkness. For a brief moment, Brutus felt a warmth in his heart. He wanted to believe Nibbles's words, but fear still held him back. "What if I can't do it? What if I fail again?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "Then we'll try together. One step at a time, okay? You're not alone on this journey," Nibbles replied with an encouraging smile. "That's what friendship is, supporting each other even in the toughest times." Brutus looked at Nibbles, the little guinea pig who had become a light in his life. Even though he was still battling an inner storm, he felt that maybe there was a way forward. "Thank you, Nibbles. I'll try," he said, the weight of his pain still present but now shared. The two sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts, but together, hoping that the light of friendship could guide Brutus back to the sun. Nibbles felt a heaviness in his heart as he watched Brutus grow more distant. The joy that once lit up the bear's face had vanished, replaced by a shadow of sadness that seemed to wrap around him like a heavy cloak. The other animals at the shelter had noticed the change too, but no one knew quite how to help. One morning, as the sun began to shine through the treetops, Nibbles decided it was time to act. He approached a group of animals chatting around a fallen log. With a concerned look, he asked, "Have you seen Brutus? He hasn't left his corner for days and I'm worried." A rabbit named Lila, known for her wisdom, looked at Nibbles with empathy. "He's dealing with a lot of feelings, Nibbles. Sometimes facing the past is harder than it seems. Maybe you should confront him and ask what's going on." Nibbles' plan was simple yet challenging. He knew Brutus had a kind heart, but also a past full of pain. With a deep breath, Nibbles headed toward the dark corner where Brutus was hiding. "Brutus?" he called, his voice soft and hesitant. There was no response. Nibbles hesitated but was driven by concern to continue. "Are you there? I just wanted to talk." Finally, Brutus lifted his head, his dark eyes reflecting deep sadness. "What do you want, Nibbles?" he asked, his voice low and rough. I noticed you haven't been yourself. You know you can count on me, right? We're in this together. What's bothering you?" Nibbles moved a little closer, trying to offer comfort with his presence. Brutus looked at the ground, as if the answers he was searching for were buried beneath the earth. "I don't know if you'd understand," he murmured. "I feel like I failed. I couldn't save my friend." "You can't carry that guilt alone," Nibbles replied, his voice firm yet full of compassion. "No one can predict what will happen. Sometimes things are beyond our control." The bear shook his head, his eyes filling with tears. "But I was there. I could have done something. If I'd been faster, he would still be here." Nibbles stepped forward, his expression determined. "Brutus, that's not your fault. You're not responsible for the choices life makes. Friendship is about supporting each other, even during the tough times. You showed me that. You helped me find joy again." Brutus looked up, the sincerity in Nibbles' words beginning to break through the armor of guilt he had built over the years. "I don't know if I can let this go, Nibbles. It's a pain that will always stay with me." "And you don't have to face it alone," Nibbles insisted. "We're in this together. Let me help you carry that weight. What do you need most right now? How can I support you?" The bear hesitated, his bravery beginning to crumble. I just wish he was here, that we could explore the forest together, like we do now. I miss him." "I understand," Nibbles replied, his voice gentle. "But you're not alone. I'm here, and we can create new memories. We can honor your friend together." Brutus looked at Nibbles, tears rolling down his face. "You really care, don't you? Even knowing all this?" "Of course I do," Nibbles affirmed, his gaze steady. "Friendship is about being there no matter what. We can get through this together. Please, don't shut me out." After a moment of silence, Brutus finally stepped forward, the vulnerability in his eyes beginning to shine through. "I want to try, Nibbles. I want to try to open up and let this pain go. But it's going to be hard." "I'll be by your side, Brutus, and together we'll find a way to make it through," Nibbles replied, his heart full of hope. The bond between them, a bridge over the pain and the past, was starting to grow stronger. The night was calm, with a sky full of bright stars lighting up the Oregon forest. Brutus sat alone in a small clearing, his eyes lost in the constellations that seemed to dance above him. The bear, who had once found some comfort in Nibbles' company, now felt overwhelmed by a shadow of sadness again. The guilt consumed him, and he couldn't push away the thoughts that haunted him. Nibbles, worried about his friend's absence, decided it was time to act. He approached carefully, his tiny feet making little noise on the soft grass. Seeing Brutus lost in his thoughts, the guinea pig took a deep breath and sat beside him, trying to find the right words. "Brutus," he began, his voice as gentle as the night breeze. "What's going on? I feel like you're distant." Brutus sighed, a deep, sad sound that echoed in the quiet forest. It's complicated, Nibbles, he replied, his voice choked with emotion. I can't stop thinking about what happened to my friend, that fire. I feel so guilty for not being able to save him. Nibbles looked into Brutus's eyes, seeing the pain hidden behind his hardened expression. You can't carry that weight alone. What happened wasn't your fault, he said, firm but kind. You did what you could. Sometimes things happen, and we don't have control over them. But I should have done more, Brutus exclaimed, frustration clear in his voice. He was my best friend. I left him behind. Tears started to form in the bear's eyes, reflecting the light of the stars. If only I'd been faster. If I had... We'll never know what could have been, Brutus, Nibbles interrupted, his voice sincere and steady. But you can't live in the past. You need to let yourself feel the pain, but also allow yourself to be happy. Your friend would want you to find joy again. Brutus turned his head, looking at the little guinea pig. How can you be so optimistic? I feel lost, he admitted, his heart heavy. Because I know that friendship is a powerful force, Nibbles replied, his gaze full of determination. I'm not like you, but you showed me that there's beauty even in the darkest things. You gave me the courage to face my fears. And now, I want you to know that you're not alone. I'm here. Silence fell between them for a moment as Brutus processed Nibbles's words. He felt a warmth spreading in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Do you really think that friendship can help me? He asked, vulnerability in his voice, bringing Nibbles even closer to him. Absolutely, Nibbles smiled, his joy lighting up the darkness around them. We can face this together. You don't have to carry this guilt. Let's honor your friend's memory by living our lives to the fullest, making new memories. He'll always be with you, but don't let that stop you from being happy. Nibbles's words echoed in Brutus's mind, like a beacon in the darkness. He began to feel that maybe there was a way out of his pain, that Nibbles's friendship might be just what he needed to free himself from the chains holding him to the past. Maybe you're right, Brutus murmured, a glimmer of hope starting to grow in his heart. I want to try. Nibbles grinned broadly, his heart warming at Brutus's decision. Then let's go together, one step at a time, he said, encouraging the bear to look toward the future. That's what true friendship is, standing by each other no matter what happens. And so, under the starlight, Brutus began to understand that pain could indeed turn into strength. He looked at Nibbles, feeling a new determination rising within him. Friendship was what would help him heal, and that night, Brutus took the first step toward letting go of his past. Brutus was determined to honor the memory of his lost friend, and the idea of organizing a tribute at the shelter began to take shape in his mind. With Nibbles's support, who had always believed in the power of friendship, he started planning the event. The bear, who once felt so isolated, was now surrounded by a new sense of purpose. On the morning of the tribute, Brutus and Nibbles gathered in the clearing, lit by sunlight filtering through the tree branches. The other animals were excited, helping decorate the area with wildflowers and colorful ribbons. Nibbles, in his always optimistic way, made sure everything was perfect. He looked at Brutus, who watched quietly, still a bit nervous. Are you ready, Brutus? Nibbles asked, with an encouraging smile. This is your moment to shine. Brutus took a deep breath, trying to push away the anxiety that consumed him. I just hope I can really express how I feel. It's hard to talk about him, he confessed, looking down. You don't have to be perfect. Just speak from the heart, Nibbles replied, placing a paw on the bear's shoulder. We're all here to listen to you. With Nibbles's support, Brutus felt a bit more confident. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, all the animals gathered in the clearing. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation and emotion. Brutus climbed onto a small rock to be visible to everyone. The murmurs of the animals quieted as he began to speak. I've never been good with words, he started, his voice trembling slightly. But today is a special day. I'm here to honor a dear friend I lost. All eyes were on Brutus, who felt the weight of pain and longing. He was always by my side, sharing laughter and adventures. Life was lighter with him, and I failed to protect him. For a long time I carried that guilt." He paused, swallowing hard before continuing. "But Nibbles showed me that friendship is stronger than pain, that the joy we shared can still be celebrated." Nibbles smiled, moved as Brutus went on. "Today, I want all of us to share our stories, our memories. I want everyone to know that even in pain, we can find a way to reconnect with each other." After these words, Brutus paused, allowing the feeling to spread among those present. A respectful silence filled the air until a bunny named Lila stood up. "I also lost a friend," she said, her voice soft. "And whenever I think of him, I feel a mix of sadness and gratitude. It's like he's still here somehow." Other animals began to speak, sharing their own stories of loss and love, the air filled with emotions and tears mixed with smiles. Brutus realized that he wasn't alone in his pain. Everyone there was connected by similar experiences. "That's what we need to do," Nibbles said as he listened to the stories. "We need to support each other, celebrate life, and honor those we love. Together, we can overcome the pain." Brutus looked at his friend, his heart warmed by this moment of unity. He realized that the tribute wasn't just a way to remember his friend, but also an opportunity to strengthen the bonds within the shelter community. "Thank you all for being here today," Brutus concluded, feeling lighter. "Let's keep celebrating friendship, because that's what keeps us going." The animals applauded, and the clearing filled with laughter and shared stories, creating an even stronger connection between them. The sense of unity that emerged from that event touched every heart present. And Brutus smiled, feeling for the first time that pain could transform into a space of love and solidarity. The gentle music that echoed through the shelter's clearing created a magical atmosphere as the animals gathered around the campfire. Brutus stood in the center of it all, his heart beating with emotion as he looked at the smiling faces surrounding him. He had made the decision to honor his lost friend, and now, surrounded by new friendships and warm memories, he felt more alive than ever. But what he didn't expect was that life had more surprises in store for him that night. As Brutus spoke about his friend, the sadness that once consumed him was now turning into a comforting warmth. "He always believed in the power of friendship," Brutus said, his voice choked with emotion. "And I wish he were here to see how we've all come together. Friendship is a gift that we should cherish and share." The animals around him listened intently, moved, and some even wiped away tears that ran down their cheeks. Then, from the back of the clearing, an unexpected sound broke the reverent silence. A faint scratching of paws on the ground made everyone turn. A small bear, with golden fur and bright eyes, appeared hesitantly, as if searching for a place to belong. The murmurs among the animals grew, and a feeling of anticipation floated in the air. Brutus stopped talking, his heart beginning to race. He stared at the little bear, instinct telling him there was something familiar about this creature. Who are you?" Brutus asked, his voice trembling as his mind raced for answers. The little bear hesitated, but then replied, his voice sweet and nervous. I'm Max. I'm Brutus's brother." The silence fell over the clearing like a heavy curtain. Brutus could barely breathe. "Max, is it really you?" he stammered, feeling tears welling up in his eyes. Max nodded, his expression reflecting a mix of joy and sadness. "I thought I'd never see you again. After the fire, I got lost. And I waited for you, Brutus. I waited for so long." Emotion flooded Brutus's heart as he rushed into his brother's arms, both embracing tightly. The hug was a mix of pain and joy, a reunion that had been postponed for years. "You're here! I can't believe it!" Brutus exclaimed, his voice cracking. "I always looked for you, always wondered what happened." He pulled back a little, looking at Max's face, his eyes full of tears. "I thought I'd lost you forever." Max smiled, his gaze full of understanding. "Me too, Brutus. Me too. But I never stopped believing that one day we'd find each other again." Max's words brought a new kind of light to the celebration. Other animals, witnessing the scene, began to gather around, forming a circle around the brothers. "This is incredible," Nibbles the guinea pig exclaimed with enthusiasm. "Friendship really is magical. We never know what the universe has in store for us." He looked at Brutus and Max, grinning from ear to ear. "You're a perfect example of how love and connection are never truly lost." Brutus, still holding Max close, felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "You have no idea how much I wished for this moment," he said, his tone sincere. "I lost so much, but now with you back, I feel like everything can heal." The other animals began to join in a large circle, their voices echoing in harmony. "Let's celebrate friendship and family," they shouted together. The music started playing again, and Brutus and Max joined the group, dancing and laughing. The tears of sadness were now replaced by smiles and joy. The celebration turned into a true festival of unity, where all the animals shared their own stories of loss and reunion, creating an even stronger bond among them. Brutus and Max, hand in hand, felt that despite the scars of the past, there was always room for love and hope. That night, under the starry sky of the Oregon forest, Brutus finally understood that life is made up of reunions, and that no matter how painful the moments of separation, there would always be a way back home, where friendship and family would be waiting with open arms. The unity of all the animals in the clearing was proof that true love always prevails, and that together they could overcome any adversity. Though one tale has come to a close, the night still has more magic to share. In the vast blue sky of Montana, a majestic eagle named Skylar soared gracefully, her wings spread wide to catch the warm air currents. The landscape below, once vibrant and full of life, was now scarred by the devastation left behind by a fierce storm. Fallen trees, shattered bushes, and an unsettling silence hung over the scene. Skylar felt her heart tighten as she thought of her friend, Dusty, the rabbit who lived in a nearby burrow. He had always been cheerful and full of energy, but now, after the storm, she feared he might be in trouble. "I need to help him," Skylar thought, as her eyes pierced through the fog of sadness surrounding the area. The strong, cold wind beat against her body, but that didn't stop her. She felt a deep calling inside, a need to bring a message of hope and comfort to Dusty. He had always been a loyal friend, and now, more than ever, she needed to return that friendship. Skylar adjusted her course and began flying toward Dusty's burrow. The dark clouds still lingered in the sky like reminders of the storm, and the wind picked up, making her flight more challenging. She had to fight against the air currents that pushed her back, but the determination in her heart drove her forward. "I can't give up now," she murmured to herself, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Dusty needs me." As she neared the ground, Skylar encountered a series of slippery rocks covered in mud and debris. One misstep could mean a painful fall. At that moment she hesitated, her wings trembling slightly. "What am I doing?" she thought, a sudden fear creeping into her mind. "What if I can't find him? What if he's alone?" In the midst of this storm of doubts, a memory surfaced. The stories her grandmother used to tell about the importance of perseverance. "An eagle never gives up, even in the face of a storm," echoed her grandmother's wise voice. Skylar took a deep breath, feeling the strength of that phrase resonate within her. "I am stronger than this," she decided, her feathers stirring with renewed determination. "I will find Dusty and show him that there is still hope." With a new focus, Skylar adjusted her wings and flew lower, maneuvering around the slippery rocks. Each beat of her wings was an affirmation of her determination. "I'm almost there, Dusty," she whispered, as if the rabbit could hear her from wherever he was. "Just a little more." Finally, after a long and challenging journey, Skylar spotted Dusty's burrow. The scene unfolding before her was desolate, but she was ready to face whatever awaited her. With her heart racing and a mix of anxiety and hope, she landed softly near the entrance of the burrow. "Dusty," she called, her voice echoing in the stillness. "Are you there?" She waited, her eyes alert for any movement. The silence seemed endless until finally, a long, furry ear appeared timidly at the entrance. Dusty looked up, his big, worried eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Skylar?" he replied almost in disbelief. "Is that you?" "Yes, it's me," Skylar exclaimed, relieved to see that her friend was okay despite the circumstances. "I came to help you. I saw the destruction and couldn't just stand by." Dusty took a deep breath, a mix of relief and sadness crossing his face. "Oh, Skylar, my home, everything I had. It's ruined. And the food, it's so scarce now." Skylar moved closer, placing a comforting wing over Dusty's shoulder. "We'll get through this together, I promise," she said, her voice gentle and encouraging. "We'll find a way to rebuild and get food. You're not alone in this." Dusty looked into Skylar's eyes, and for the first time since the storm, a small glimmer of hope began to appear. "Do you really think we can do it?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "Absolutely. Together, we're stronger. Let's explore the surroundings and see what we can find," Skylar replied, encouraging him to get up. Their friendship, forged in moments of joy and now tested by adversity, was about to grow even stronger. Skylar, the eagle, glided majestically over the storm-ravaged landscape, surveying the destruction that stretched beneath her. As she flew over the area, her mind was focused on Dusty, the rabbit who, like so many others, had lost his home. The weight of responsibility pulsed in her chest. "I need to find him," thought Skylar, determined to bring a message of hope. As she approached the old oak tree, she decided to take a break. The tree, despite its fallen leaves, still stood tall, like a silent guardian of the forest. With its deep roots and sturdy trunk, it seemed to have faced countless storms, and Skylar felt she could learn something from it. "Hello, young eagle," the oak's voice echoed softly, as if it had been waiting for her. "What brings you here in such a difficult time?" Skylar perched on one of the lower branches and looked at the old friend. "I'm looking for my friend Dusty. He lost his home and needs hope. I want to help him find a new path." The oak rustled its leaves, though few remained. "Hope is a light that shines even in the darkest hours. I have faced many storms, and each time I found myself on the brink of destruction, I found the strength to start again. Sometimes it's in pain that we find our greatest resilience." Skylar listened carefully. "But how can I help him? I'm just an eagle, and Dusty is so small and vulnerable." "You are more than just an eagle," said the oak, its voice full of wisdom. "You are a friend, and friendship is one of the most powerful forces we have. Bring Dusty not just food, but the assurance that he is not alone. Show him that life can begin anew even after destruction." Inspired by the oak's words, Skylar felt a new energy growing inside her. "Thank you, friend. I will do my best to help him." And with that, she took flight again, determined to bring hope to Dusty. As she continued on her way, she faced strong winds and slippery rocks that seemed to distract her from her focus. Doubts began to creep into her mind. What if I can't find him? What if he's too sad to hear what I have to say? Fear gripped her, and for a moment she hesitated. But then the stories from her grandmother echoed in her mind, memories of how she always spoke about perseverance and courage. "Skylar, you must fly high and face the challenges head-on. That's how you grow," her grandmother used to say. That gentle voice filled Skylar's heart with renewed determination. "I can't give up now. Dusty needs me." Gathering all her courage, she adjusted her wings and faced the strong winds. The image of the old oak, firm and resilient, stayed in her mind, guiding her. "I will find him. I will be the light he needs right now." Finally, after a journey full of challenges, Skylar spotted Dusty's burrow in the distance. She felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. "What will I find there?" she murmured to herself. But driven by the desire to help, she dove towards the ground, ready to face whatever awaited her. Skylar flew over the devastated landscape, her heart heavy at the thought of the friend she had left behind. At last, she saw Dusty's burrow, a place that was once cozy, now turned into a pile of broken branches and dry leaves. The eagle landed softly nearby, watching closely as the rabbit struggled in vain to tidy up the wreckage around him. "Hey, Dusty," Skylar called out, her tone filled with concern. "How are you?" Dusty lifted his head, his big eyes revealing the sadness he felt. "Skylar, I'm not doing well. He looked around, his voice trembling. My home. Everything I had is gone. And now I don't know what to do. Skylar moved closer, her eyes shining with compassion. I came to help you. We will find a way to start over. You're not alone, Dusty. The rabbit sighed, the sadness still evident on his face. But what if we can't find food? The storm destroyed everything. I don't know how I'll survive. We'll figure it out together, Skylar insisted, trying to spark some hope in her friend. Remember all those adventures we had? We always found a way. Dusty looked at the eagle, determination beginning to grow in his heart. You're right. We always found a way out. But what if we don't? Then we'll keep trying, Skylar replied, her voice steady. Life is full of challenges, but it's also about friendship and support. Let's explore the area and see what we can find. Dusty slowly nodded, the spark of hope starting to ignite again. You're right. Let's go together. With a gentle flap of her wings, Skylar rose slightly into the air, scanning the surroundings. I see some clearings down there. We can start there. The two friends headed towards the clearing, Dusty's determination renewed by Skylar's presence. As they walked, the rabbit glanced at the ruins of his old burrow, remembering the happy moments he had lived there. I miss my home, he confessed. It was a safe place where I felt protected. I understand, Skylar said, landing next to him. But remember, safety doesn't just come from a place. It comes from the people we love and who stand by our side. You still have me. Dusty smiled, feeling a bit lighter. Thank you, Skylar. Your friendship means a lot to me. They continued their walk, searching for any sign of food. Finally, as they reached the clearing, Dusty was amazed. Look at this! Wildflowers! He jumped with excitement, his eyes shining. And herbs! There's so much here! Skylar laughed, admiring Dusty's joy. See? Even after the storm, nature finds a way to recover. Let's gather some, and then we can take it back to your new burrow. Dusty began collecting the flowers and herbs, his sadness being replaced by the joy of discovering that there was still beauty around him. I never imagined that something so beautiful could grow after all this. It makes me realize that even in difficult times, we can still find good things. Exactly, Skylar exclaimed, flying a bit higher to get a better view of the clearing. Life always offers us opportunities, even when we can't see them. And you, Dusty, are an example of that. As they gathered the food, Dusty looked at Skylar and said, I'm really grateful to have you by my side. Without you, I don't know how I would have faced all this. You're stronger than you think, Skylar replied, smiling. And together, we're even stronger. Now, let's prepare this food and think about how we can rebuild your burrow. I'm sure we will find a way to turn this into something even better. With renewed hope and the certainty that they were not alone, Skylar and Dusty began planning their next steps, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Skylar and Dusty, after a journey full of challenges, finally found themselves in a clearing that radiated life and beauty. The sun shone brightly, warming the earth still wet from the storm, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers. The vibrant colors of the flowers, in shades of yellow, purple, and red, contrasted with the debris surrounding Dusty's burrow, bringing a breath of hope and renewal. Look at that, Dusty, exclaimed Skylar, hovering over the clearing. It's like nature is telling us that everything can come back to life, even after a storm. Dusty, who had been so sad and worried, now felt a lightness in his heart as he looked at the beauty around him. That's true, Skylar. I can't even remember the last time I saw something so beautiful. It seems that even in the middle of pain, there's room for joy. Skylar landed gently beside the rabbit. Let's pick some of these flowers and herbs. They can help us find some food for you and maybe even bring a bit of color back into your life. I saw, great idea, Dusty replied, already moving toward a plant with green, juicy leaves. These herbs look delicious. I could make a salad. Would you mind helping me figure out what's edible? Of course, I know some of these plants, Skylar said. carefully inspecting the herbs. "And I promise not to let you eat anything harmful. I'll always be by your side." As they picked the flowers and herbs, Dusty started to feel more hopeful, his sadness fading away with each minute spent in that magical clearing. "You know, Skylar, I never realized how generous nature can be. Looking at all this, I feel like I can rebuild my life." "Exactly, Dusty," Skylar responded with a smile. "Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the darkness, but there's always a light waiting to be found. We just need to open our eyes and hearts to it." Dusty looked at his friend with gratitude. "You are a true friend, Skylar. Without you, I would be completely lost. Thank you for being by my side during this tough time." Skylar nodded, a sparkle in her eyes. "And I thank you for letting me help. Friendship is what makes us stronger, and together we can get through any storm." They continued exploring the clearing, gathering flowers of various colors and shapes. Dusty, mixing the herbs, began to feel excited and creative. "I'm going to make a colorful salad. Would you help me put everything together? We could even have a little celebration to celebrate life." "I'd love to help," Skylar replied enthusiastically. "A celebration is a great idea. How about singing while we work? That always brings joy." "Yes, let's do that," Dusty said, laughing. "I can start telling a story while you make the salad." Skylar began gathering the most vibrant flowers as Dusty talked about the first spring he remembered, when the flowers bloomed and the birds began to sing again. As he spoke, he felt lighter, as if his worries were fading away with the words. "I remember one particular day," he began, "when my family and I found a field full of flowers. It was like the world was painted with joy." Skylar listened closely and with a smile said, "And now we are part of this painting. See how these flowers are here to remind us that life is full of surprises, even when everything seems lost." "Yes, you're right," Dusty agreed, grabbing a handful of flowers. "Look at how they dance in the wind. If they can find beauty even after a storm, then so can we." With the clearing as their backdrop, Dusty and Skylar focused on finding food and celebrating life. Their friendship blossomed as they shared laughter, stories, and hopes, turning the moment into a memory they would carry forever, even in the face of any challenges yet to come. As Skylar and Dusty enjoyed their improvised meal in the clearing, the scent of wildflowers and fresh herbs seemed to mix with the crisp Montana air, creating a magical atmosphere around them. The blue sky, dotted with fluffy white clouds, was a sight to behold, and the peace of the moment allowed them both to relax a little, forgetting the difficulties they had faced. Dusty, with a piece of herb in his mouth, looked up and suddenly started laughing. "Look, Skylar, that cloud looks like a giant rabbit." He pointed with his paw, his eyes sparkling with joy. Skylar lifted her head and smiled. "And that one over there looks like a carrot. See? Nature has a funny way of making us smile, even in tough times." The rabbit nodded, still laughing. "It's true. I never thought clouds could be so funny. Sometimes I forget to look at the little things around us." "Sometimes it's the little things that bring us the most happiness," Skylar replied, watching the clouds slowly change shape. "Life can be hard, but if we can find beauty even in difficulties, everything becomes easier to bear." With a thoughtful look, Dusty turned his attention back to the sky and began to notice other shapes. "Look, that cloud looks like a heart. Have you ever seen that before?" He looked at Skylar, seeking confirmation. "Yes, I have," she replied, her eyes shining as she remembered past moments. "When I was young, my grandmother always said that clouds send us messages. If we can interpret them, we can receive advice about life." "Messages, huh?" Dusty asked, intrigued. "What do you think that heart-shaped cloud is trying to tell us?" Skylar thought for a moment and said, "I think it's reminding us that love and friendship are essential, especially now. We're in this journey together, and that's what matters." Dusty nodded, feeling warmed by Skylar's words. "You're right, Skylar. I never thought I could find such an amazing friend amidst all this. You always make me feel better." He looked at the eagle with gratitude. "And you inspire me too, Dusty." Your resilience reminds me that even in dark times, we have each other for support, Skylar said, flapping her wings lightly as if reaffirming the strength of their bond. Through friendship, we can face any storm. As they continued watching the clouds, Dusty paused and with a more serious tone said, "Sometimes I feel so small compared to everything happening around us. The storm made me feel vulnerable and lost." Skylar tilted her head, understanding her friend's pain. "I get it, Dusty. We all feel small sometimes, but it's exactly when we come together that we find the strength to get back up. Look at us now. We're here together, and that makes us stronger." "You're right. If the clouds can show us shapes and messages, maybe I can also learn to see things in a new way," Dusty said, a renewed sparkle in his eyes. "I can interpret the signs of nature, and that will give me hope for the future." "Exactly. Each day can be a new opportunity to learn and grow," Skylar encouraged. "Life is full of surprises, and sometimes they come from where we least expect. Trust yourself and be open to what the world brings." With a new sense of determination, Dusty looked back at the sky. "I think I'm going to pay more attention to the signs from now on. Who knows what else I can discover?" Skylar let out a joyful cry. "That's right, Dusty. We're in this journey together, and we'll always find a way to overcome the challenges. Now, let's enjoy this moment and remember what truly matters: friendship and hope." They both laughed, and as the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, they felt a new energy and a renewed sense of purpose. The connection they had formed in that clearing would become the foundation for facing whatever lay ahead, and the message from the clouds continued to echo in their hearts. After their refreshing search for food, Skylar and Dusty returned to the rabbit's burrow, now in ruins. The scene of destruction was bleak, but Dusty's newfound determination shone like a beacon. He looked at the remains of his old home, and though sadness still weighed on his heart, a spark of hope began to emerge. "Skylar," he began, looking at the eagle who had always been his faithful friend, "I don't know where to start. My burrow, everything I knew is gone." The eagle landed beside him, her feathers glowing in the soft light of the sun. "Dusty, remember what the oak taught us. We need to be resilient. We'll rebuild together, and this time it will be even better." Dusty nodded, trying to absorb Skylar's words. "You're right. If we're together, we can face anything." He looked around, searching for inspiration. "I remember how cozy my burrow used to be. We need a place where we can feel safe again." "Let's use what we have," Skylar suggested excitedly. "We can gather the fallen branches, the leaves, everything the storm left behind. Nature always finds a way to recover." The rabbit began collecting the thicker branches that were still intact, while Skylar flew in circles above, searching for fresh materials. With each piece Dusty gathered, his confidence grew. "Look, Skylar!" he exclaimed, holding a sturdy branch. "This can be the base for the new entrance." "Perfect," Skylar replied, flying down to land beside him. "And what if we make the entrance wider? That way, it'll be easier for you to come in and out." With renewed energy, Dusty got to work, dragging the branch to the entrance of the burrow. As he struggled to position it correctly, Skylar watched him fondly. "You're so strong, Dusty. Look at how hard you're working. It's admirable." "Thank you, Skylar. Your words mean a lot to me," Dusty said, taking a deep breath and trying to compose himself. "I feel more motivated than ever, despite everything." They continued working, and with each new branch Dusty placed, the burrow began to take shape. "I think we need something else to cover the entrance," Skylar suggested. "A bit of leaves and grass might help protect against the rain." "Great idea," Dusty replied, and soon they were both gathering large green leaves that had survived the storm. "I never thought I could feel this happy in the middle of all this." Skylar smiled. "It's amazing how hope and friendship can guide us, even in tough times." As they worked, Dusty couldn't help but reflect on the importance of friendship in his life. "Skylar, I never thought I'd feel so much support, not just from nature, but from you. It makes all the difference. I'll always be here, Dusty. You don't have to go through this alone, Skylar said, her eyes shining with sincerity. Together we are stronger. After a while, the new entrance to the burrow was almost ready. Dusty took a step back and admired his work. Look at this, Skylar. We're really making something beautiful. Yes, and soon we'll have a home again, she replied with a glimmer of pride in her eyes. And remember, this home isn't just yours. It's ours. Dusty felt warmth in his heart. Thank you for being by my side. Without you, I don't know how I would have faced all this. That's what friends are for, Skylar said softly, to be there for each other, no matter what. And so, with the sun slowly setting on the horizon, Skylar and Dusty continued working on rebuilding the burrow. With each step, each branch placed, they were not only building a home, but also strengthening a friendship that, like the old oak, would withstand any storm life through their way. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the Montana landscape, Skylar and Dusty settled into a small spot beside the new burrow they were building. The shadows grew longer, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of the wildflowers they had found earlier. Dusty was sitting on a rock, gazing at the sky while Skylar arranged some leaves they had gathered to make the place cozier. "Do you remember the first time I flew over your burrow?" Skylar asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "It was a clear day, and I saw you hopping around so happily." Dusty laughed, his ears twitching at the memory. "Yes, I was chasing a butterfly and didn't even notice the storm coming. You warned me, didn't you? You shouted for me to go back home." "And you did, as fast as lightning," Skylar replied, winking at him. "That was the first time I noticed how quick you could be. I've always admired your courage." Dusty turned to Skylar, his eyes shining with the evening light. "Courage? You're the one who truly inspires me. I've always watched you flying high and dreamed of being as strong and fearless as you. Now, after the storm, I realize that courage comes in many forms, not just from the heights you reach, but also from the way you face challenges." Skylar felt her heart warm at Dusty's words. "You know, I feel scared sometimes too. When I faced the strong winds and slippery rocks to get here, I almost gave up. But then I thought of you and how you needed help. That gave me the strength to keep going." Dusty nodded, a shy smile forming on his lips. "It's amazing how friendship can give us courage. I was so lost after the storm, but you showed up and everything changed. I honestly don't know what I would have done without you." "You don't need to thank me, my friend," Skylar said, tilting her head. "Friendship is about being there for each other no matter what, and you're stronger than you think. That's how we overcome the storms of life." Dusty looked at the ground for a moment, reflecting on Skylar's words. "I always thought strength was something physical, something you could see, but now I realize that true strength comes from the heart, and you've always been there, showing me that." Skylar smiled, happy to see Dusty recognizing his own resilience. "And I'm grateful to have you by my side. Together we can face any storm, can't we?" "Yes, together," Dusty agreed, his gaze determined. "I feel like, even when everything seems lost, there's always a chance to start over. And I want us to look back one day and see all that we've accomplished." "And we will accomplish a lot," Skylar exclaimed, flapping her wings as if she were about to take off again. "Let's build your new burrow and make it even better than before. And who knows, maybe we can create a place for all our friends, where everyone feels welcome." Dusty beamed, his eyes filled with hope. "That would be wonderful. A home for everyone, where we can support each other and grow together. That's what friendship really means." Skylar nodded, feeling the strength of Dusty's words. They resonated within her like a melody, a reminder of the power of unity and kindness. "And whenever we look up at the sky, we'll remember that there's always hope, no matter how dark the clouds may seem." Dusty glanced up at the sky, now tinged with orange and pink. "Yes, and whenever I look at you, I'll remember that I'm never alone. True friendship shines even in the darkest nights." In a moment of mutual understanding, they both sat in silence, gazing at the horizon, knowing that together they could face any storm and find beauty even in the hardest situations. On a sunny morning, Skylar and Dusty decided it was time to explore beyond the familiar boundaries. The sky was clear, painted a deep blue, and the sun shone brightly, lighting up the Montana landscape with a golden glow. The wildflowers they had found in the clearing were in full bloom, and the fresh air carried the sweet scent of spring. "Look, Dusty, that hill looks amazing. Let's go there," Skylar exclaimed, her wings spread wide with excitement. The rabbit, just as eager, twitched his ears and nodded. "Yes, let's go. Let's. There might be more food or even a new place where I can build a burrow. I'm so excited," Dusty replied, his heart racing at the thought of new discoveries. The two of them began climbing the hill, Skylar flying in circles above Dusty, who hopped energetically. The path was a bit steep, but their determination kept them moving forward. As they climbed, Dusty stopped for a moment to look around. The world seemed more beautiful than ever. "Skylar, have you noticed how everything looks so renewed after the storm? The colors are more vibrant, and the trees seem greener," he commented, admiring the scenery. "It's true, Dusty. Nature has an amazing way of bouncing back, just like us, right?" Skylar replied, landing beside him. When they finally reached the top, the view was breathtaking. Montana stretched out before them, with mountains in the distance and valleys covered in flowers. The sun reflected off the waters of a distant lake, and the gentle breeze made the leaves on the trees dance joyfully. "Wow! Look at this!" Dusty shouted, his eyes shining with wonder. "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." "Yes! And look at those clouds!" Skylar pointed with her beak, watching as the white clouds floated across the blue sky, forming curious shapes. The two of them sat on a large rock, enjoying the moment. As they watched the clouds, Dusty noticed that they were changing shape. One cloud in particular turned into a perfect heart. "Skylar, do you see that?" Dusty asked, a smile spreading across his face. "That cloud looks like a heart." "I see it. It's beautiful, Dusty. It makes me think about how important friendship is. Looking at you, I realize we need to value the connections we make," Skylar reflected, her gaze drifting to the clouds. "You're right. I never thought I could feel so close to someone after losing my home. But you showed me that friendship can give us strength when everything seems lost," Dusty replied, his eyes shining with gratitude. Skylar tilted her head, feeling touched. "And we will always have each other, no matter what happens. Nature teaches us that even in tough times, there is always beauty and hope around us." As they kept watching the clouds, Dusty started to see other signs. "Look, now that cloud looks like an arrow. What do you think it means?" "Maybe it's a sign that we should keep moving forward and explore new opportunities," Skylar suggested, her voice full of excitement. "The future might be uncertain, but it's ours to discover." Dusty nodded, feeling a new strength in his heart. "Let's go. I'm ready for whatever comes as long as you're by my side." "I will always be with you, Dusty. Let's go together, united in friendship and hope," Skylar replied, her wings open in a gesture of encouragement. With that, the two friends headed down the hill, filled with determination and joy. The world before them was vast and full of possibilities, and together they were ready to face any challenge life threw their way. Skylar and Dusty walked along the winding trail, their hearts racing with the thrill of exploration. The sun shone brightly, lighting up the path that stretched out ahead of them. "Look, Dusty, that hill looks promising. Shall we go there?" Skylar suggested, her feathers glimmering in the daylight. Dusty, always excited about new adventures, agreed. "Yes, who knows what we might find up there?" When they reached the top of the hill, the view was breathtaking. The mountains stretched out in the distance, and the lush greenery seemed to dance with the wind. But what caught Skylar's attention the most was a cave that was partly hidden under a large cliff. "Look at that cave. It seems like it could offer us something interesting," she said, pointing with her wings. "Do you think we should go in?" Dusty asked, hesitating a bit. "Caves can be dangerous." Skylar, always fearless, responded, "Sometimes you have to take risks to find what you need. Let's discover it together." Dusty took a deep breath, feeling the courage that Skylar's presence gave him, and together they headed to the entrance of the cave. As they entered, the sunlight was gradually replaced by dimness, and the cool air in the cave carried the earthy scent of dampness. The walls were covered with moss, and small shiny rocks reflected the little light that came in. "Wow, it's more beautiful than I expected," Dusty commented, his eyes sparkling with discovery. "Look, Skylar, those rocks look like stars." Skylar smiled, but her expression soon turned serious. "Yes, but we need to stay alert. This cave could hide dangers." As they moved forward, the soft sound of running water began to echo, and soon they came across a crystal-clear spring bubbling up from the ground. "Fresh water! This is amazing!" Dusty exclaimed, rushing to the spring. He leaned down to drink while Skylar watched with a smile. But as they were distracted by the water, a shadow approached. Skylar raised her gaze and saw a figure moving quickly among the rocks. "Dusty, watch out!" she warned, her talons ready for a possible attack. Before they could react, a cunning fox appeared, its eyes gleaming with curiosity and a hint of possessiveness. "This is my home now," the fox declared, its voice firm but not hostile. "You're not allowed to stay here." Dusty, startled, took a step back. "We just wanted to explore. We didn't mean to cause any trouble," he replied, his voice trembling. Skylar, staying calm, faced the fox. "We understand that this place is important to you, but we found something valuable here too. We're not here to compete, but to share." The fox frowned, surprised by the eagle's response. "Share? Most people only care about protecting what's theirs." "Yes, but the storm affected all of us," Skylar continued, her words full of empathy. "We're looking for a place where we can feel safe together, we can help each other." Encouraged by Skylar's bravery, Dusty joined the conversation. "We have food and water. We can share what we've found. There's no need for it to be this way. We can be friends." The fox seemed to think about their words, its expression shifting between distrust and curiosity. "But what if I can't trust you? What if you decide to take everything for yourselves?" Skylar took a step forward. "We understand your fears, but we have a chance to create something new here, a place where everyone can thrive. We don't have to be enemies." The fox hesitated, looking at the spring and the shiny rocks around. "Maybe you're right. The storm took a lot from me, too. Being alone isn't easy." As the tension in the air eased, Skylar smiled. "We can find a way to make this work. Together, we can overcome the hardships." Dusty nodded, his eyes hopeful. "Let's be a team. What do you think?" The fox, now with a softer expression, looked at the two friends, and slowly a smile formed on its face. "Maybe it's time to open my heart to new beginnings." Skylar and Dusty were frozen inside the cave, the dark and damp surroundings wrapping them in a blanket of uncertainty. The glow of the crystal-clear water reflected the light coming from outside, but the presence of the sly fox at the entrance made them hesitate. The fox, with its reddish fur and sharp eyes, growled softly, showing it was ready to defend its territory at any cost. "We can't just leave and let her keep us from using what we found," Dusty whispered, looking nervously at Skylar. "We need to think of something." Skylar, always the bold one, took a deep breath. "Maybe we can talk to her. After all, she's here for the same reason we are: survival." Dusty looked at her, a mix of doubt and hope in his eyes. "Do you think she'll listen?" "There's only one way to find out," replied Skylar, her voice steady. With that, she flew to the entrance of the cave, landing on a rock that gave her a higher position. "Hey, Fox," she called, trying to sound confident. "Can we talk?" The fox raised her head, her expression of distrust unchanged, but curiosity was evident. "What do you two want here?" she asked, her voice low and cautious. "We came looking for shelter and food, just like you," said Skylar, keeping her gaze steady. "We understand the storm made things hard for everyone, and we don't want any trouble. We believe that together we can find a solution that helps us all." Dusty, noticing the chance to join the conversation, stepped forward timidly. I'm Dusty, And you? What's your name? The fox hesitated, but the rabbit's kindness seemed to soften her caution. My name is Lyra, she replied, her tone a bit gentler. And yes, the storm wrecked my burrow too. I was trying to find a safe place to hide when I discovered this cave. Skylar saw an opening. Lyra, what if we made a deal? We can share the resources in this cave. You don't have to be alone, and we also need a safe place. Lyra tilted her head, considering the proposal. Share? It's been a long time since I had company, but how can I trust you? I understand your distrust, said Skylar sincerely, but look at us. We're here out of need, just like you. Working together can make us stronger. We can share the food and water, and together we'll be safer against any challenges that come our way. Yes, we need each other, Dusty added eagerly. Life is better when we have friends by our side, and I promise I won't steal your food. He smiled, trying to lighten the mood. Lyra looked at the two of them, her expression changing from suspicion to cautious acceptance. Do you really think this could work? What if there isn't enough food for 3? We can explore together, Skylar replied. And who knows, we might find more food in the forest. By working as a team, we could even discover new places. Life is full of surprises. After a moment of silence, Lyra finally took a step forward. Maybe you're right, it's risky, but I don't want to be alone anymore. And the idea of sharing seems less lonely. So, let's give it a try. The atmosphere in the cave began to shift, as if a new light was entering. Skylar and Dusty smiled with relief. Great! Then let's start right away, Dusty said, full of enthusiasm. Yes, we can set up a system, Skylar suggested. I can fly and look for food while you two stay here and organize the space. And at night, we can take turns keeping watch. Lyra nodded, now with a sparkle of hope in her eyes. This could work. I was so focused on protecting my territory that I didn't realize that being kind could bring more benefits. As the 3 of them got organized, a new alliance formed out of need and friendship started to solidify. With every laugh and conversation they shared, the cave was no longer just a shelter, but a home in the making. And so, even in the darkest situations, their unity and friendship began to shine brightly, promising better days ahead. Rest now, my darlings, and let your dreams take flight. I'll see you tomorrow with new adventures to tell.